All right, welcome to another video. In this one, I will talk about the concept of elasticity. To be more precise, I will talk about price elasticity of demand. Now, before I even go to graphs, what is elasticity? Elasticity is responsiveness. It's a measure of how responsive is your quantity to a change in an input variable. In this particular case, change in price. Price goes up. What you're going to do, you're going to buy less. That's the law of demand. Price goes up, quantity goes down. The question is, however, by how much will your quantity go down? So, to illustrate, let me draw two little graphs. I will need some space here, so I will draw them quite on a small scale. So we have price quantity. One is almost vertical, and the other one is almost horizontal. So both of them conform to the law of demand. They all slope down. But let's look at first at the graph on top. So let's say we have price and quantity, and then price doubles. Goes through, let's say, from P1 to P2. What's going to happen to quantity? Quantity will go down. We know that. But look, the change in quantity will be very, very, very small. Now look at the one at the bottom. Let's say we have some price and quantity, and then price increases by tiny little bit. Let me use a different color here. Okay, so again from P1 to P2, but here you see that the difference is very, very small. But you also see that the change in quantity is very, very dramatic. So this is the example of elastic demand. Now, we will be talking in class about the determinants of elasticity, but at the end of the day, there are several determinants. It all comes down to choice. Do you have a choice or not? Examples of inelastic goods would be, for example, water. Price of water can go up quite dramatically. It's a necessity, you still buy it. The example here would be, for example, a Toyota Corolla. Toyota Corolla is a good that has a lot of close substitutes. Honda, Mitsubishi, whatever other car brand in that range you have. All right. So this is an example of an elastic good. Inelastic good. The good that is very unresponsive to the changes in price. Again, most of the time when you think about those goods, you think of necessities. Salt, milk, water, groceries in general. It's actually an interesting question whether housing is elastic or not. You'd think that it's a necessity, but given everything that we've seen happening in the markets lately, I'm not so sure anymore. Whereas goods right here fall in the elastic category. Even a very modest change in price will result in quite a dramatic change in quantity. I was asked on a few occasions, why do New Zealand goods often cost less outside of New Zealand? I still recall a few years back, my student from Saudi Arabia asking me, why is New Zealand milk costing less in Saudi Arabia than it does in New Zealand? Again, the answer is elasticity. Think of Saudi Arabia. Do they have a choice where to buy milk from? Of course they do. They can buy milk from New Zealand, they can buy milk from Australia, Argentina, India, I don't know, whatever other country is exporting milk. So, if price of milk from New Zealand is too high, they'll simply switch. They have a choice to switch to another country and import from Australia or Argentina or Brazil, or I don't know, whatever. In New Zealand, however, we are in this scenario. And I actually feel that a lot of markets in New Zealand fall into this category. We simply do not have a choice. That's why we pay an arm and a leg for groceries, for seafood, for plenty of products, actually. All right, so why is elasticity important and what does elasticity mean? First, let's talk about the definition of elasticity. What is elasticity? Elasticity of demand is the percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in price. Now, what does this formula really mean? It's simple. It's really simple. So let's say that price goes up by 10%. Quantity goes down by, let's say, 7%. So a 10% increase in price resulted in a 7% decrease in quantity demanded. So, according to this formula, 7 divided by 10, 0.7. Okay. Another example. So let's say that price goes up by 5%. Quantity demanded goes down by 15%. So what is my elasticity of demand? It will be 15 divided by 5, which is 3. All right, so 2 examples here. In the first one, elasticity of demand is 0.7. In the second example, elasticity of demand is 3. The key number to compare these numbers to is 1. So in a middle example, so let's say we have price going up by 6% and quantity demanded going down by 6%. So a 6% increase in price resulted in a 6% decrease in quantity. So in this case, elasticity of demand is equal to exactly 1. Exactly 1. All right. So this demand is called unit elastic. This here, this is an elastic demand. It's very responsive to price changes. Look, I have only increased my price by 5%. I have lost 15% of my customers, 3 times as many. I have lost 3 times as many customers as was the magnitude of my price increase. This here, on the other hand, is an example of inelastic demand. I have managed to raise my price by 10%. I have only lost 7% of my customers. So I hope you can see where I'm going with this. Elasticity is important because it will drive my decision whether to increase the price or not. All right, so why is elasticity important? So again, in the first case, we had elasticity of demand equals 0.7. In the second case, elasticity of demand was 3.0. Well, what is my revenue? It's price times quantity. When one goes up, another one goes down. Price up, quantity down. Price down, quantity up. So let's say that we are in this scenario when my demand is inelastic, 0.7. I will increase my price by 10%. Okay. What's going to happen to my quantity? It will drop, but it will only drop by 7. So here, this downward arrow is going to be smaller than the up arrow. What's the net effect on my revenue? If my demand is inelastic and I increase the price, my revenue will go up. All right, so let's talk about the other scenario. Let's say that we are here. Again, my revenue again, price times quantity. Again, when one goes up, another one goes down. So now I know that my demand is very, very elastic. It's very responsive, 3 times as responsive as my change in price. What am I going to do? Well, I will decrease my price by 10%. Well, you see where I'm going with this. My quantity will increase by 3 times as much. Again, the up arrow outweighs the down arrow. The result will be an increase in my revenue. Look, a good example of this is your textbook. Your textbook that you pay an arm and a leg for has pretty much a perfectly inelastic demand. There are about 50 people in this country who need this textbook. Right? Your cohort and the airport cohort, that's it. No one else in this country needs it. Well, I don't know, maybe some other universities use it for their courses, but I'm doubtful. So, if the publisher decides to decrease the price of that textbook, will their revenue go up? No. No, it will not, because it's not like some random person here in the street will think, oh, the price of this textbook went down, let me buy myself some economics knowledge. That's not going to happen. But if the publisher decides to increase the price, the quantity will not go down much either, because, well, you guys have no choice. On the other hand, look, when you go shopping, after I'm finished with this video, I will go to Pack and Save for my weekly grocery shop. When I approach the meat aisle, what do I see? I see all these yellow stickers, specials. Why? Because all of these products are highly elastic. Scotch fillet steak, rump steak, pork, lamb, whatever. All of these are close substitutes. I always have a choice. So this is why elasticity is so critically important. And we see it in our everyday lives all of the time. Think about your bill payments. Most of you paying your power bills have an early payment discount. Why? You have a choice. You always have a choice to switch from Contact Energy to Trust Power to Genesis to whatever the heck else is there. Do you get a discount on your rates bill or your water bill? No. Why not? Because it's inelastic. You have no choice. Okay, so hopefully I was able to convince you that elasticity is quite important. And another thing about elasticity is that it's very easy to estimate. It's surprisingly easy to estimate. Change your price by 5% and see what happens. Estimating your demand is difficult because there are a lot of confounding effects that play into that. It's sometimes difficult to discern cause from effect. Elasticity, though, is easy. Again, change the price, see what happens. See whether you are in this scenario, in which case the right thing to do will be to increase the price, or you are in this scenario, in which case the right thing to do will be to drop the price. So when is your price at an optimum? Here, when your elasticity is 1.0. In that case, 5% increase will be exactly compensated by a 5% decrease. So cannot do much. Price will have to stay the same. Unfortunately, things are not quite as easy as they seem here, because your objective as a business isn't to maximize your revenue. It is to maximize your profit, something that we will be talking about in due course. I will be finishing this video in just a little bit. My next video will be on how exactly do we compute elasticity. So, but that's a matter for our next talk.